Welcome to the C-Learn Security video lesson on creating testing file systems. In this video, we will go through the process of creating a simple disk for testing file systems and file system behavior, which is very beneficial and important when you want to test a new file system or study its behavior. Rather than using a true disk or using a USB for such testing purposes, we could benefit from using a virtual machine to do that. I'll use a Windows 8.1 system and we'll create a virtual disk that we can use. Let's go to Settings, Storage, and click the controller we want to add the disk to. Now, let's click on this icon, which gives us the following options. Create new disk, choose existing disk, or cancel. Since we don't have an existing disk to select, we'll be creating a new one. Let's also leave the default as it is, a VDI virtual disk image, and next, we can make it a dynamic located or just a fixed size. Let's leave the default setting, as it won't actually make a difference from inside. Next, let's name it. I'm calling it Testing File System. I'm also giving it 250 megabytes. Make sure you change this one to megabytes. You can, however, choose whatever size you like. I chose this size as we're making a small disk, making it easier to track and analyze. Let's go ahead and click Create. Now that everything is properly set, let's click OK, and we can now start the virtual machine. Again, this is extremely useful for testing purposes, especially if you want to start copying files to study and understand file system behavior. Let's now go to Manage and format our disk. Please note that this may take a little bit of time depending on the specs of your computer. Now, let's go to Disk Management. Here we'll find a message notifying us that we have a new disk. Let's leave it as an MBR disk since we're already using such a small disk, so it's okay to leave it as is. Here, we have an unallocated disk. Let's right-click and select New Sample Volume. Let's leave everything as it is. Now, let's choose a drive letter. We need to make sure that this drive is not being used by something else. Let's use A. Here, we can name it. I'll name mine Testing. Let's also make sure that we're running a 4096, as this is the one that I want to use. Let's also make sure we're not running a quick format, as there should not be any data on this disk. So, let's uncheck it, and now we can click the Next button, and now we're finished. As you can see, the disk is being formatted in this disk, and now it is ready as we see here. Now we can start copying files and using this disk for testing purposes, especially for an NTFS disk. Should you want to change the file system, you can do so. Simply go to Format. Here I'll enter FAT32 as an example. Now we can go ahead and format and use the cluster size you want. Now we can test that one, etc. As you can see, using a virtual machine and creating a virtual disk is very useful when we're using and testing NTFS file systems or even other file systems. And this concludes our video lesson on creating testing file systems. We'll have a chance to use what we learned here soon, as we will be depending on this type of activity in upcoming videos. Thanks for joining us.